Hey everyone, how's it going? Azren here. Hope you guys are doing well. In today's video, I want to talk about the two major approaches that exist when it comes to learning a language. Now, I need to give some credit to someone for this. I need to give credit to Andy Roberts. He left a comment on my video called Year 1 of Learning a Language is the Hardest. His comment is what sort of gave me the idea for this video. So I need to give credit to Andy for this. Because it's something that I've been aware of his comment, like in the back of my mind, but he put it in such a good way. It was a bit of an epiphany for me, so I really wanted to make sure I shared it with everyone, because this is really good what he said. So basically, I'll put the phone away. But basically, when it comes to learning language, you've got two major approaches. Approach number one is you could go sort of a speak from day one sort of approach. What this means that you are very, very, very focused on becoming conversational. And so what this means is that when you are learning a language, you are very focused on finding native speakers to speak with. You're very focused on practicing lots of speaking, and that's the main focus. It's trying to get you ready to be able to have conversations with people immediately or as fast as possible. Now, there are a lot of advantages to the strategy, right? I think advantage number one, the clear advantage, is that you are able to have a lot of conversations quickly, right? So if you're learning French and you go to France, you can order coffee, you can talk to the hotel people, you can make friends, you can do a lot of that in a relative short period of time. So that is a massive advantage of the strategy. Now, there is a pretty big drawback, and the drawback or the disadvantage is that since you are so focused on conversation, you are not overly focused on learning the grammar or learning the correct sentence structure or maybe even learning the perfect pronunciation. And so what happens is that as you're speaking, you're probably making a fair amount of errors, but they're not major errors, right? So you're making errors, but people are still able to understand what you're trying to say. And so this strategy is really good for some people, but I think a lot of people will struggle with the strategy. The reason I say that is because some people, they're crippled by making errors, right? They're really afraid to make errors. And so if you were to try and teach them, or if they're trying to learn a language in this way, they're not going to speak. It's going to be so terrifying because they're like, I want to speak perfectly. I don't want to make mistakes. I want to have good grammar. I want to understand the sentence structure. I want to understand the rules of the language. I don't want to go and like make a fool of myself. So that's really one approach. The other approach you can go is really the opposite. And this is what I sort of call the standard classroom approach. So this is an approach where you learn the grammar, you learn the rules of the language, you learn the pronunciation, you learn the spelling. It's learning a lot of the fundamentals, right? It's really building that base first and worrying about conversation later. So the main advantage to this strategy, in my perspective, is that, you know, when you go to speak or when you're learning language, you really have a deep understanding of the language. You can read really well, you can write really well, you can speak correctly and eloquently, and it's like you've really, because you developed that base, you're able to really sound intelligent in a lot of ways in writing and in speaking. Now, one of the biggest disadvantages, and I think a lot of people feel this, is that if this is the approach you take, you can often go study for 3, 4, 5, 6 years and barely have a basic conversation because all of your attention, or most of your attention, has been so focused on the fundamentals and not the conversation. And so it's really trying to figure out, I think one of the biggest challenges is trying to figure out for the learner, what strategy or what approach do I choose? I think that's one of the biggest challenges for a language learner. In my perspective, I think you guys probably know this if you've watched my videos for a while. I think both are really good, and I think either picking a blend of the two strategies, so a mixture of the two strategies is great, or another good idea is to pick one strategy for a little while and then switch. And keep switching as you learn the language. For example, when I was learning Chinese, I started off with a very traditional approach. I was in a classroom, I was at a university actually. I was learning the sentence structure, I was learning the grammar, I was learning the characters, I was learning how to write and read and all those different things. But I wasn't focused on conversation. I probably did that for about a year, year and a half. Actually, probably more of a year, not a year and a half. I did that for a year. Then I switched to all conversation. So I lived in China for a while. I was living with a Chinese family who didn't really speak much English, and it was all conversation. And then after that, I sort of did a bunch of conversation focused, and right now, I'm actually going back to a lot of the fundamentals and more of a traditional style. And so I think that's an approach that works really well. I've done that for all the languages that I've learned. So yeah, that's everything I want to talk about for today. Andy, thanks for your comment on YouTube. I think that's a really phenomenal comment, and it gave me the idea for this and inspired me for this, so thanks so much. And yeah, I will talk to you guys later. Bye for now.